This is the second version, which is an intro to the actual show. And I just love this. That's cool. Or then like we're talking like the other day, because this is like are we still in August? Yeah. So this is the 50-year anniversary of hip hop. And I was talking to Robert My Burnett about how, and I was showing him New Zealand hip hop and also Poirier and stuff, and just because he's a Hollywood exec, right? So producer and stuff, and he is and we're talking about how the influence of American hip hop, the black culture on New Zealand and the Pacific Islands and around the world, and how, I find it dismaying that American youth of today are very hateful of their own country. And yet, without America, we wouldn't have so much cultural influence on our own culture. Like Decepticons, right? Poirier, right? Patia Maori Club, right? Uh, uh, the two girls, like Chains, right? The song Chains. What's it? Did it change? Might as well, since I'm sharing, might as well watch some more of this New Zealand stuff, right? So, and I'll get back to Ayakashi soon because I've got another one I want to show you. So, chains, break these chains. I think it's break these chains. Shei-Fu. There we go. Shei-Fu. Shei-Fu, right? So, Shei-Fu, if I remember right, DLT and Shei-Fu. If I remember right, Shei-Fu is he? I know he's Pacific Islander, but I'm not sure exactly which island he's from. But right, add to stream. But he, he is far removed from the US, right? Yet the influence of American culture on New Zealand, especially black hip hop, right, and how it's had it, So you listen to the beat, the bass line, all right. Wasn't that quite similar to like what that Ayakashi introduced, right? This is a beloved New Zealand song, right? I mean, in the clubs, if you're not dancing to this in the clubs when it's on, I don't know what you're doing. Yeah. Yeah. Then goes the chorus. Just a setup. I don't know who produced the song, but man, the Ghetto Blaster. I remember having a Ghetto Blaster. This is when this is what I miss about hip hop. The clean, direct, awesome, freaking powerful lyrics, right? I really miss that. Where you could just sit, young kids could be sitting right next to you and you could listen to it. You can't do that anymore with the current hip hop. But what I have been told, that there is good, clean hip hop current that's out there. But guess what? Guess what? The studios don't want that to be what's influencing culture. They want trash to be influencing culture. Yeah, yeah, bro. Yeah, yeah. That's exactly what I'm saying right here, right? You know, it's what I miss from 2000s, 90s hip hop, right? I won't even let my kids listen to most of it. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying, man. Like I'll just put on shake food, man. Like look, I picked up this week, yesterday actually, not this week. Where are we? And I was going to play a bit of that soon. Come here. It's at the bottom, isn't it? Yep, it's at the bottom. KJ52, right? Picked this up for $2 yesterday. Didn't have that on there from the thrift shop. KJ52. It's a second album in 3 weeks. CD I've been able to pick up from him, right? And another one I saw, I think I picked up this one last week. The week before, because last week I had my slip disc. Right, $2. Sole Purpose from is that KJ52 as well? Yeah, and TC Present, right? And it's like I mean, I have had discussions with my American black friends, right, who have like online, and I've actually had them on here on my other show called The Narrative, right, where it's not under this Plunge Couch brand, but I have I said, look, I just can't stand why they're going to say the N word, right, every second freaking lyric. Like, why? And I go, why I don't want, why I ask that? It's because why are Indians in Fiji calling each other that word, right? Why are Maoris calling each other that word, that degrading word, right? And you're trying to say, I own it, we own it. It's not that. What you're doing is you're putting that word into every culture's head to think of you as that. You might say, oh yeah, it's fine, it's we own this word now. No, no. You just gave them the right to think of you in their head as that. And we don't let people do that to our culture, right? And and as far as I know, Maori people won't let you call them certain words because they own it, right? And or Asians, right? And but yeah, it's only the black culture I find that use that word and then tell you not to use that word, right? Because it's degrading to them. You can't have both ways, And so the people I've talked to said, yeah, we don't take offense at it. Yet the most popularized, like it's 50 years of freaking hip hop now. You're celebrating. You could just be out there going, listen, guys, let's make a consensus and conscious decision to never use that word in our lyrics ever again. Because we might be happy with it and like, yeah, call each other that, but guess what? Every other person, a person in South Korea knows who you are because of that word, and they will look at you like that, as a suburbanite ghetto, whatever, trash, whatever you want to think of, because that's what that word means, right? Because it's a degrading word, and you are now putting a word into their head for generations because it's in your music now, right? And I think, and like, hey, you do you, right? It's your culture, you do you, but that's what you're putting out here, and and that's, yeah, you know you really, uh yeah, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to seeing that because I like that guy. I really like that guy. So Marimita says, you know what you should see, they clone Tyrone. The whole issue of things chosen to be produced being the ones most counterproductive to the people it's made for is really what signposted. That's like awesome, man. Yeah, I that's brilliant. And yeah, let's have a watch of that. Since we're on that, let's watch the trailer because I saw the trailer and I was like, yeah, um I gotta watch this because I like that actor, and because they just did that one with like black horror thing, and that was pretty interesting. and you know, but it became very stereotypical as well, and it wasn't as funny as they thought it was gonna be. Oops, let's get out of there. Let's go to the start. So this is on Netflix. So if you guys got Netflix, there's no reason why you shouldn't be watching it, right? So here we go.
And be willing to protect the ones you love by any means necessary. I ain't scared. I'm a dope boy, remember? Excuse me, kind sir, but if you could point me to the elevator that leads down to the freaky level.
Yeah. So, all right. So Maramedia says, this one is awesome. Even the character choices are an element of the movie, like the choice to use real film instead of digi. Plus, Jamie Foxx is the funniest pimp I've ever heard. Yeah, he reminds me of oh gosh, what's his name? Oh, it was a Friday. Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg. I think was it in Friday or was he in the other one? I think it was called Sh- Hutch and Starsky and Hutch. Yeah, I think he was in that one where he was playing the pimp. That was pretty cool as well. But yeah, I do miss this. Right, I do miss this, and I miss being able to listen to bands like Tribe Called Quest. Right, I miss that. I miss just it's the moment they realized that gangster rap was going to be the voice of the black people, and that was it. It was like, oh, all the swearing, all this thing, and talking about hoes and all that. That's what's selling the music. So it's like, give me 20,000 more of those, and that was it. It's commodity, and at the end of the day, this is how companies work, right? Executives work. This is how the whole process works. It's like, what is selling, and give me 10 more of that. And that's why we have all this trash right now in pop culture. What is selling? Give me 10 more of that. And then they realize that actually it's not selling. It's sold for just that moment, right? Like Avengers was selling really well because it came out every couple of years. But then you went, let's do 20,000 of those, whatever, couple hundred of those all at once. And people are like, comic book movie fatigue. Yeah, because, and now it's the same thing with us now, right? It was like, what happened to all the good lyricists? What happened to good artists who didn't need to swear and use the N word in every single sentence almost, right? In every first chorus, bridge to get a message across. And like, I miss Public Enemy, right? I grew up on that stuff, and it was like, just you could just listen to it, and you could dance to it with a kid, like at the roller, right? When we had the roller discos, right, in the 90s and 80s, and you could have kids with their family, mom and dad, and you'll be there. Like there's a song called Saturday by I think it's Tribe Called Quest, right? Sad. I think. Let me find it. So it's Saturday. Roller skating jam called Saturday, right? And this was a song that was playing at the roller league. So yeah, it's De La Soul. Yeah, right. So De La Soul and stuff like De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, Public Enemy, right? And Public Enemy were very activist minded, right? About the black culture and stuff, about the community, but they weren't out here swearing, right? They weren't out here talking about booties and all that stuff. Not booties in that sense, but like actual, nudity and stuff like that. They didn't have to sell that. Sorry, they didn't have to use sex to sell their music, and you could play the stuff on the radio, and well, of course they play WAP on the radio now, but like what I mean is like you could play on the radio and you could just sit there with your, with your young 5-year-old mate, cousin or whatever, and you'll be there, or brother or sister, and mom and dad, and they'll be like, yeah, getting into it. Whereas now it's like, get that music off. What are you listening to? And I think it's just that whole idea.
Girl close boy keep saying him up on Saturday. Saturday is sprinkler. Wet me for one, Mr. Sprinkler. I'm heating high five and a day.
One of the cool things is that, like, I think only about 3-4 years ago that De La Soul put out an album, and the sad thing was that it didn't hit big as it should have, because of the whole idea of that, like, well, you got to push, uh, push the whole, I guess, actually 6 months ago they released something with Snoop Dogg by the looks of it. So we'll play that in a sec. But I mean, it didn't hit that big. But I guess because the the audience now, this generation, I guess, and I sound like an old guy, right? I am old, but I mean, like, I don't, like, because we were talking about this old thing just the other day, like yesterday, to my friend when we were doing all this stuff. It's like, I don't mentally feel old in my head. The body might look old, and I got a gray beard and all that, but like, brain wise, I feel like a freaking 20-year-old all the time. Think like a 20-year-old, because this is all my passion and stuff. But like, I agree with what what Maramitio is saying here, is that even in other genres, the same thing has happened. I can't think of any band with a political message like System of a Down in the last decade. That's a long time to be devoid of those types of conversations in public media. That's true, right? I remember Testament, right? Testament was like, even though it didn't become a thing, right? Global warming and stuff, but Testament was talking about global warming. And if I remember right, Blackened was talking about something similar from Metallica, was talking about that. And that's thrash metal, by the way, right? And you had like Napalm Death was talking about it. And so you were actually having deep, like, metalheads were talking about the environment, right? Is what I'm getting at. And that's what, System of Down, metalheads, and you're talking about like war, bring your own bomb, right? BYOB, right? Bombs over Baghdad and stuff like that. And you were talking about things about war and stuff. Now it's just like, yeah, it's just all sexual, and the conversation is all about, okay, who's dressing up as a guy or who's dressing up as a chick, kind of thing. And there's like, oh, who's coming out as something now, and that sort of conversations just become one-sided now. It's the only conversation you can have about pop stars or whatever popular thing. Is about sex. It's not about any other conversations. But they kind of try to say, well, we're talking about race and stuff like that. You're really not talking about anything but just sex in the music. You're not doing anything that's actually progressing the community forward. And that's why I love, like, people when they start writing songs that aren't, that is talking about, what's happening in the community. Because I remember the songs that stick out of my hand. I still can't remember. There's a two on my street, in my neighborhood, right? So there's a I'll bring this up here. Islander, I think it's actually Islander Girls. It's called In My Neighborhood. And same, I think, in the neighborhood. Where do you go? A neighborhood. And Sisters Underground. Yeah. Sisters Underground. So, this is another New Zealand group. Since we are talking about hip hop and we are talking about 50 years of hip hop, let's check this up. And is it coming up as that, or is it different? Hold on. I think I'll go on a different page. Let me try that. Bring that from that to that. And nope. Yep. And we'll go back to the other one soon. So this is Sisters Underground. I hope this is the right song.
And you know, the sisters on the boulevard don't give me props, they're just too damn hard. Stroll right past them, roll right past them, even though they talk rap and make me wanna
Hey, Maravita, this is New Zealand, right?
I have to keep subliminal, 'cause I know
It's been a
my
while since I've heard it.
Rolling.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I actually lived in South Auckland in 88 to about 93. Yeah. Panmure in Mount Wellington. So that's Sisters Underground. And one of the things, like, from what I remember, and I might be wrong about this, is like that was the one hit. And there was that, I think they put out an album and so on, but like, you know, I don't think anything major came off that afterwards. And so there's that, like, self life in New Zealand music is very short. And I think the one, especially I think in the hip hop scene, there's only a couple that have survived. Um, and some, like, even like, if I remember right, gosh, there was the one that they went to Hollywood, like they went to LA and looking for the fame, right? But and a lot of people I know kind of do that in the bands and different things, and like, whereas, like, it's like you got to make it big there to make it there. But I think the ones that have really made it well is if they made it really big here. And I think when your own community is behind you, um, but there is that other thing where, like, the record companies pushing you, right? Because they're like, yeah, you got to get out of there to make it. But because because when the more money you make, the more money they take, right? So when you leave, they have more influence over you and what they tell you and stuff, and how you behave and who you answer to. When it's your home, your boys are gonna keep you going. Hey, yeah, you know, maybe you're not listening to the right people, and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, Jen Wigmore. There's a problem with having this thing right in front of the screen. So yeah, I know Jen Wigmore tried it, and it pretty much wrecked her musical career. But middling success over here, but wasn't established here enough to make a presence when she did eventually come back. Yeah, kind of like, might as well play something from her as well. Like, I mean, you know, the only one that's really, really pushed it out there is
And I'm not trying to like put all the blame on
that's
you
it, Lord.
because I was the one that put us on
Yeah.
TV in the event that will try and change the hood. Not trying to glamorize it or nothing.
Feel like you just came and let the rain in. It feels like you just let it happen, man. Take away your kid's life just because you tag. Damn. Why you let us get ahead? If you let the bullets back right before you see the end. Please help me understand why you letting your little brother slack.
So very clean, very cool, very musical, hip hop mix with a bit of pop music, right? Like, nothing, out there, that's kind of like, make you say, well, yeah, can't be listening that in the daytime, with the kids, right? But it's also very positive message, right? It's like man talking to man, right? And the whole thing, like, brother, right? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Why can't you do that? And, like, and yeah, and yeah, exactly, yeah. And it addressed big issues at the time, like kids being killed for graffiti, right? Just, it's it's. I mean, like, I mentioned earlier, like, when you're saying, like, I lived in Panmure in the late 80s and 90s, like from about 87 to, I think it was about 4 years I lived there. And I worked there as well. And so, and I mentioned to Robert last weekend about what it was like living in Auckland at that time, like, just, street kids, roaming in gangs, with, like, you couldn't walk alone at night because it just was so rough. And you know, I had I was with a couple of my friends with skateboards, and I had my took along friend. Um, I think I had another young guy, and I had Rimu who was Rarotongan, and then there was a group of other guys, right? And we're just walking and just getting some, I think probably some hot chips or something. And this is right about 9 o'clock, and we're walking, and one of the guys called me over, and what had happened was early before that, what a Rimu had said to me, if anybody has says anything to you, because I was the only Indian guy amongst them, and I'm about 18, 19 here, and he goes, just say that you're a Fijian, not an Indian, but a Fijian. And I said, oh, okay. So they called me over because, oh, where are you from, bro? I said, Fijian. I'm from Fiji. He goes, oh, okay, cool, cool. And that was it. And they said, what happened? Because they asked me where I was from. I said, could you tell me you're Fijian? Because, yeah. Because the reason for that was that, well, that was kind of made sure that being a Fijian made those other islanders afraid, right? That meant back home was my dad who would come out and bash their heads in, that kind of fear, right? Because the history of the islands, as a lot of people don't know, that Fijians, right, used to roam around from island to island, eating, bashing them and going to war with them, with these things, the club, right, and basically taking them home and eating of the food. And so that fear of Fijians is still there, because they know the Fijians don't mess around. I mean, indigenous Fijians. And I have a brother who's, a cousin brother who's actually the son of my oldest uncle, like direct relation, who's Fijian, right? And so, and we've got Fijian in our family line. So yeah, so I found it kind of interesting that that was defense, and but so Auckland at that time in the 90s, I'm not sure what it's like now, but it was like this melting pot of all the Pacific Island communities, and of course earlier in the 80s as well. But by the time I got there, I was in my late teens, and that's when stuff like OPP, right, other people's property, was coming out. Well, NWA was out, Two Life Crew was out, and so you had these sort of suddenly this whole gangster rap, this whole especially with Two Life Crew, right, with the whole sexual thing and all that, was the biggest thing that the kids were listening to, the teenagers. And it suddenly went from being, De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, overnight almost, and Public Enemy to gangster rap. Within about 6 months, it was boom, right there. And that was it. And I think, in a sense, in the end of the day, I mean, whatever sells is whatever sells. But there is an instigation of destruction of community, especially music. Sorry, let me track that back. Destruction of community and family and wellness in those communities, and using exploitative elements to destroy those strong bonds. So when you bring in like Tupac, right? Tupac. I haven't listened to a lot of Tupac, but I know that Tupac used to sing a lot about this sort of stuff, right? And I think even Biggie used to sing a lot about that stuff as well. Just about community and just being a leader and stuff. And from what I understand, it's been a while since I've listened to it, but the idea, and especially Public Enemy, right? Public Enemy, I actually was into Public Enemy before I actually went to Auckland in the 90s. late 80s, I should say. And so I was actually into Public Enemy at the time. So for me, I was into Public Enemy at the same time I was into heavy metal, like Megadeth and Metallica, Anthrax, right? So, and Iron Maiden and AC/DC. So there wasn't any like us or them ever in my life about when it came to rap or hip hop or metal. It was always on the same level. Sure, I love Megadeth more than I do, I guess, Public Enemy, but I don't lower one above the other, right? Musically or creatively. And so I felt like that I could enjoy both. But I couldn't listen to NWA and then think like, yeah, I can put this on around my auntie and uncles, right? But I could put on De La Soul and they'll be all jamming, and then we did, you know. I remember having like when we go to parties, I'll be able to put on, they would be put on their music, and then I'll go on and put on, you know, Public Enemy, and they'll dance or hip hop. I think it'll be probably, yeah, it was popular at that time. Gosh, there was a song called Queen, something Queen, Nubian Queen or something like that. It was pretty popular at that time. And yeah, and I think, you know, this is it's as much as I love black culture and as much as it was on the rise, and if you really think about it, black culture in the 80s was on the rise. By the 90s, it was on the downslide. And this is what I was trying to say earlier, is that I feel that they used music, and especially gangster rap, to hold the people back. And that's my political stance on that, right? That's my political opinion on that. I personally think that they use music as a tool to keep people from advancing, right? Especially indigenous cultures. And I think that's the same way when you, and I've had to actually hold up one of my cousins up on this. And when I went into Fiji, like about maybe 2010 on holiday, and for the first time I heard one of my cousins call another one nigger. I was like, what? One of his mates. And I was like, what? And my head just went, I was blown away. I was like, in Fiji, you Indian dude, my cousin's calling one of his mates, Indian mates, that word? And I'm like, wow, wow. And you know where they heard it? Music. They heard it music, right? Movies, people understand language, culture. Yeah. It's not forcing it. It's just because that's how they speak. Natural, right? And that shouldn't even be spoken. Like I was saying, you shouldn't even have to say to your own brother and sister or your friend or whatever that word that you hate others calling you, and you think it's okay to call yourself that. Or why are you worried about other people calling you that? It's just hypocrisy of all hypocrisies, right? But so I was like taken aback. I'm like, I can't believe I'm hearing this. And you know, because even in my own, like that's the first time I've used it in a long time, because I always think like I just can't even have that word in my head. And so I was like offended not in a sense like more shocked. I was like, what? And as for them it was just natural. Oh, yeah, they said to each other all the time. It's like, okay. And then like even last year I heard my cousin say it, and I went, listen, dude, you've never felt, you know, a chain around your neck, right? And that was my thing. It was like, you've never felt a chain around your neck or around your wrist or around your feet. You've never been forced to do things, been sold. right? Nor have these guys that live right now, right? They can't say that either. They can say, oh, my ancestors did that. Just like my ancestors, right? I can say my ancestors were like, were exploited when they came to Fiji as indigenous laborers. I can say my ancestors were. I was not. So that is the past. Yeah, of course we can say, yeah, that's happened and that's true and that's cool. We can learn from that and we'll hope it will never happen again. But hey, in Libya, they're still selling slaves, African slaves right now, right? And so nobody's worried about that. And we're selling and buying children right now, right? Human slavery, right? What is it called? Trafficking, right? For sexual exploitation, right? Well, and then when they put a movie out about it, oh no, it's bad. We shouldn't be talking about that movie. We shouldn't be promoting that. Why? You don't want to know that you want to keep it in the dark. It's happening. Multi-billion-dollar industry. So yeah, so that's what I said to him. I said, look, man, I don't want to hear you say that again. I don't want to hear that you say that unless you have had that happen to you, you are not allowed to use that word. I don't want to ever hear you say it again. Here's me at 49 telling a 20-year-old, that you shouldn't be saying that because it's not part of your culture, and it shouldn't be brought into your culture, right? But it's forced into your culture because of music. As much as we want to celebrate and enjoy hip hop, and it is glorious, it's allowed so many people around the world to express themselves and about their culture through this art form, which is glorious, right? There's no doubt about that, but that same art form has been allowed to be exploitive of that same culture it's birthed in, right? So I've heard a lot of black people talk about this, right? Black Americans, I should say, who've talked about this. They're like, yeah, the studio has used us to do this. And I was like, yeah, but it's your music. You were the ones who basically decided amongst yourselves that this is what's making us money. So let's do it. You didn't hold, didn't go, okay, no, we won't do this, right? I remember, who was it called? Michael, he's an action, he's martial artist, but he's an action actor. He said like, they asked me to put on a dress, and I said no. He's a black guy. He said no, I'm not going to do it. They go, oh, it would be funny. No, I'm not putting on a dress. Well, and then other people do, right? So there is no consensus about what you will do and what you won't do to protect your community, right, and to protect yourself. And I think that's kind of something like, I think like in New Zealand we have, right, which we go like where we go, pull your head in, mate, right? So if you see somebody doing something, and I mentioned this also to Robert, letting him know about what we as men, kind of hold ourselves to. And I said something about like how we don't do that anymore because it kind of feels like it's, the feminism thing. But what I meant was fourth wave feminism, not feminism itself, the classic feminism, right? Because I've been taught by feminist teachers who don't believe the way these people, the new feminists do. Nothing like that. They just wanted equality. They wanted a seat at the table kind of thing. They don't want to like take the seat away from somebody else just so they could be there, right? So with this one here, like I think we're using a art form to exploit and degrade that same culture, and those in that same culture do it for themselves as well, right? Because they've let go of what was great, clean and good. And you don't have, doesn't mean you don't swear in it. Metal has swear words in it, right? Metal has sexual things in it, but it's not exploitative, right? And even like we talk about hair metal and stuff like that, when there was really getting to the exploitative thing, what was the answer to that? Thrash metal, speed metal, right? You had people, even with people was like, listen, yeah, no, we don't want all the sex kind of thing. We want to just talk, the answer to that was like stuff like Megadeth, Metallica coming up, talking about war, talking about violence, talking, talking about police violence and stuff like that, and all that other stuff, because it was like it was answer to that. And right now, there is no answer to this gangster rap. There is no answer to sexual exploitation now when it comes to music, especially hip hop, because there's only one form that seems to be being pushed, and all the money is for that, right? So Nicki Minaj sell. So what do? We got Lizzo bodysuit, like all out there, right? So that's the answer to that. So now that, like, let's put that out now more. You had Beyonce, was amazing, and what did they do? They went with Nicki Minaj, right? Now it wasn't all about just being good music and stuff. It was about exploiting that that side of things. And now to sell your music, you have to let it all hang out, right? So that was similar to what was happening with Madonna in the 80s. Like, Madonna was out here, and suddenly all the girls were getting dressed up, and as Madonna, like wearing lace and all that, gloves and all that. So like, bra underneath, but like see-through clothing on top, because they wanted to be, And so I remember this classic interview they did in the 80s, right? When I think Like a Virgin came out. And of course, Like a Virgin was written by a dude, right? If you didn't know that. So yeah. So you've got a song called Like a Virgin sung by Madonna, but it's written by a dude. So a whole bunch of girls were getting interviewed who were dressed up like Madonna. So it was stuck to my head, because it was like, I've forgotten a lot of things, like probably 90% of what I've learned, I've forgotten. But like maybe 60. But I think maybe 70. But what I was thinking was like, the girls, the reporter goes, so what is it about, listening to Madonna and getting dressed up like it? Oh, it helps us to be individual. And she pans out wide from the girl, and they're all dressed the same. Exactly the same. It was so freaking funny. I was like, what? And it just showed the hypocrisy of it, the thinking that, like, not the hypocrisy, but just the thinking that, like, you're trying to be different, but you're actually all the same. And so there wasn't this individuality in it, because you were just copying someone. And so, like, over time I've just learned that, like, I don't follow any authority. I don't follow any what any band or leader does, because I want to, individuality is whatever you individually like, you enjoy, not what that guy likes and what that guy does, or who your pop hero is. Because I've learned that very quickly, once you put your trust in anybody too much, yeah, when they fall, you yourself will feel like you're destroyed, and because your emotions tied up into it. I think, and I'm gonna put this up here because I've missed that one. So yeah, so I got to agree with you there. It seems to still be happening with a lot of the messaging we consume and what's available for us to consume easily. Yeah, I think it's just the way they package it, right? They package things to sell, and I think when you package things to sell, you do all the numbers, right? Like that Chat GPT, right? If you right now type into Chat GPT, what's the best form of hip hop that I can make right now that would sell, right? Or if you got like that, or pop, and it'll go through the entire whatever, all the things on the internet, online, whatever, everything, and it'll show what you got to have in your words. Give me the best lyrics, right? If I just did that, right, in the Chat GPT, let me see what it would do. Is it .com or something? Chat GPT.
Change like the weather, solid as a rock, small piece of leather, but well put together. Flames our endeavors. Come to find out that game makes it better. Hey makes it better. Shades of epiphany.
The weird thing there is, like, you notice how, like, clean that is, right? And I kind of kept thinking in my head, like, how did Snoop Dogg survive all these years, right? When you had someone like Nipsey Hussle, right, get shot in front of his own store that he put in his own community, right? Because someone was jealous of him. His own, his own community, person from his own community shot him, right, on his doorstep of his business because they was jealous of him. And what? And just think about that. So when I heard that, I was like, what Nipsey did wrong was go back to his community after having made it, right? And then you think, well, that's what people, that's what you want. But someone who's made it to be out there, make them, and then bring it back to the community. But then, yeah, yeah, there you go, right? So that's the difference. And so I didn't know that, to be honest. Yeah, I can't. Probably did. It's like, I mean, I forgot 70% of what I know, but like, yeah, forgot that. And man, if you're interested, you want to jump on. I mean, I'll send you a link. You come in, we'll have a conversation. It'd be cool. But yeah, rather than me just putting a chat out, I mean, I'm open, man, to it. But like, so I think, yeah. So if you made it well out there, and you made your millions, whatever, 100 grand doesn't matter how much you made, because like, I mean, you know, for me, like, I mean, any money I've kind of made in the last 5 years, I've put back into the community, into the business, and then back into the community again. And so, and it hasn't been about profit to me at all. But even the company that I'm part of in America actually gave me money for myself, but then I put that money back into the community by putting on the events. So but you can't. It feels like you can't do that in America. You can't get out of the ghetto and go and do it well, and then come back to the ghetto and put up a business, right? And because it feels like you're like, um, the community becomes jealous of you, or someone in the community becomes jealous of you and wants to take you out, and now you're dead, right? There's no more music coming, like Tupac, like Biggie. There's no more music coming. There's no more money being made, right? Your voice has been silent, right? Your desire to do well for your community and speak for your community and bring wealth into the community is gone, all because you went back to the community and you didn't put a fence around your house that's 12 foot tall with cameras, right? With bodyguards, right? And the other weird thing is, like, Nipsey's bodyguard wouldn't even protect him, right? And that's quite sad. He had a bodyguard there. And so, I listen to stuff like Hip Hop Uncensored, and I'm always going like, where is a lot of times, there's some good people on there and they speak a lot of sense. And then there's other people that, like, they don't. I kind of think like, you guys aren't actually questioning some of the motives that are in your community, and it's like you're just letting people just out there to hang hang out to hang out to dry, basically, in your own communities. You're not talking to your community and saying, listen, man, we're not doing good out here, right? You're not looking after your brothers anymore or your sisters. You just basically don't care, and you're like, and then you go, oh, but it's our life. We can do whatever we want. So, but really, do you think killing each other is a good thing? Last year they killed about like the highest rate in Chicago per year in like 60 years of murder, black on black murder, right? Gangster rap, right? Gangster, right? They had like about 4 little kids get shot in the crossfire. If I remember right, that was the number, right? And then the community came out, you know? Yeah. All right. Yeah, man. Maybe we'll have it. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, here we get harsh words, they get harsher guns. Yeah, and you can't really say anything to anybody because they'll shoot you, right? They get angry, they'll shoot you, and I think, but that's the other thing, right? I mean, like, guns are supposed to protect you, but like, you know, in the sense, like, but it's like the gun is the voice right now. Like you can't sit down and talk about shit, and people just get out there, just start taking it. Let's just shoot everybody up. But yeah, yeah, man. Like, I mean, highly recommended, right? So I'm definitely gonna watch this today, if not this week. Just gotta figure out what I'm doing, but it's yeah, it'll be on my list to watch. Declan Tyrone. Thank you, man, and have a good day. I've, yeah, every time I'm on here, I think it's the weekend for me because I only used to do these in the weekends, but like now it's like almost any other day. So yeah, have a good day, man. So yeah, I really think like if if the black community, and who am I to say anything, right? But this is an outsider's view. Sometimes, and I know myself, right? And having an outside view is important because you're not in the middle of it, right? In the trenches, trying to, what's going on? Who's shooting at me, man? And then you got somebody else that, look, it's that guy, that guy's, I'm talking about war in the trenches, right? But so, like, if you have somebody outside coming in going, yeah, it's that guy, this is what's happening, this is what's happening, maybe look at that, maybe question that, and this is why, and like, really think about what's going on. Okay, it's because of there's no fathers in the home, right? Dad's out there having, your dad is out there having, shenanigans, with, all those other girls, right? And then they're having kids. So your dad, who should be looking after you, is not looking after you because he's spread out all over there. One problem. Next, because he's not there, he's not telling you and raising you with your mom and dad or with your mother together the right way to be a man, to be a lady, right? Not to throw yourself out there at any chance you get at anyone, right? Cool. Also, when you have anger issues, this is how you deal with anger, right? And so when you have that happen for generations and generations, so like the 50 years, let's just say it's just the last 50 years, like 2 generations. If you have that happen, that's kids with no fathers suddenly raising kids with no fathers, right? Mom's raising kids with no fathers, and so on. So now you got kids of kids of kids, right? Like grandma now, right? 50 years ago, that grandma, right, is now raising her grandchild because mom's not home or dad's not home, right? And so you're putting pressure on their grandma who was also a solo parent, right? Having a solo child, right, with no dad, who's also now grown up to have at 18 years old or 16 or 13, right? I noticed that in the 90s in New Zealand, having children, right? And this is what I was talking about the other earlier on about talking to a 65-year-old guy who's, I was telling about how like in the 90s there were 13-year-old girls hanging out at our homes, at our parties, just so they could get with someone, just so they could have a baby, just so they could go on DBB, right? And so then you had like kids having, babies having babies, basically 13-year-olds having children, and then their children were like 15 having children. So you got generational, and this is a problem that people don't understand. Poverty comes out of that. Generational poverty comes out of that. Yeah, that's it. All providing a model for a good relationship, meaning the cycle repeats. Exactly. Yeah. So you've got, and this is something why people go, well, why are there so much poverty? It's race. It's not racism. Racism doesn't create poverty because you can always, like, if that guy doesn't want to give you a job, you can always go to another place and look for a job. I've done that all my life, right? If that person goes, oh yeah, I remember going to when I moved to South Island, I would apply for a job at the bookshop, at the bookshop, and I love books, right? I'm really good at it. But I had like about 2 minutes to type in, with the friggin' manager watching over me, the information for ISBN number. I'm like, my brain's going, what the hell? Shouldn't I be just sitting down having a chat about it? And then she comes over, okay, here's, take some time, get used to this computer, get used to the screens and do it. I'm like, she puts up a screen, goes, type this in. And I'm like, this ain't working. She goes, oh, yeah. So I was like, yeah, okay. So, but next thing I know, just turn up to WINS, which is like a social services here for work. And I go, listen, we look at our things and I go, okay, you've got like experience in the kitchen, cooking and stuff. Okay, yeah. Because, I know someone who's actually looking for someone who's that. You do? Yeah, sure. Okay. 2 years, just like that, and it was like, cool. I was running the kitchen myself days, right? And I'd be, days I'd be working with like busy nights. It was a sports bar, pub. At nights, we'd be feeding about 40, 50 to 100 people on a Friday, Thursday night, right? Or on Saturday when the games were on. Or on a Sunday, I'd be just working by myself. On a Monday, I'd just working by myself, looking, feeding 40 people by myself. Yet, on the spot, I couldn't type in the right numbers, and therefore I didn't have a job, and so on.